everybody, I'm Maritza Barone, and this is the Things You Can't Unhear podcast. Has there ever been a moment in your life where you heard or read or were told something that you simply could not unhear? Something that caused you to make positive changes so that you could become the best version of yourself? Well, we share this show with access to inspiring and empowering humans who will motivate you to become the happiest, healthiest, kindest, and most compassionate you. Sit back, settle in, and let this be the day you hear something that simply cannot be unheard. Hello, beautiful Things You Can't Unhear community. Thank you for being here again to listen to this episode. You're going to love it. Stay tuned for the whole thing. There's so much gold from start to end in this conversation with Vanessa. I'm beyond pumped to have this chat. Vanessa is a psychic, an empath, and a medium with a growing community of over 30,000 people on her platform called Readings by Ness. You may have heard of it already. Now, since Ness was a young girl, she knew she was different from the get-go. And you hear that with so many psychics and mediums. She could hear things, she could feel things that no one else could see. And for many, many years, she struggled with this. And at one point, she reached a deep depression and anxiety, trying to suppress her intuitive gifts and really steer away from being different. But now she has found peace in that difference and happiness through embracing who she is and being true to herself and utilizing her talents and helping so many people on the way. Early in 2022, she actually released a global prediction for the year, and this is how I found out about her. Someone had sent me her post. It's what she calls a download from her spirit guides. And she shared it a few months later, and it became a turning point in her career, let's say, which doubled her community in a matter of weeks because it actually resonated with so many people, and so many of the predictions that she stated began to manifest into reality. During this chat, we share her story of her personal awakening, how she guides others through her readings, and her ever-growing platform. If you are interested in strengthening your own intuitive gifts, you will love listening to this episode with Ness. She's one of those people who feel like you've known all your life. She's real, she's familiar, and she's authentically Ness. I hope you love this chat as much as I did. Please, please, please let me know what you think. Welcome, Ness, to Things You Can't Unhear. How are you?
I am fantastic, my love. Thank you. How are you?
Good. We're feeling a bit grounded. We took 3 deep breaths before we hit record because we're both very pumped to talk to each other. This is your first podcast interview, and I love interviewing people for the first time and really elevating what they're doing, because you've got, as an empath and a psychic, you are building a really quite significant community. 30,000 so far people are following your journey and following your work, and it continues to grow and grow and grow so beautifully and so organically. So I'm so pleased to have you here and be able to chat to you.
Thank you. I'm really excited. As you know, it's my first podcast, so something I've been wanting to do for a while, but I'm glad that this opportunity popped up exactly when it did. So I'm excited.
And you checked in with your angels and your spirit guides to see if this was the right thing for you to do.
I did. So when you messaged me, I think I remember actually voice messaging you back straight away. When you had messaged me, and there was like that podcast request, I literally saw like a traffic light and it went straight to green. So I was like, yep, cool. I can do it. It's fine. Let's do it.
Yep. And we've got such beautiful, amazing, curious listeners on this podcast who every time we share about this topic or, delve into spiritual matters, the listenership doubles every time we share about it. So I know the curiosity is there. There's a lot of people who are deep in it. There's a lot of people who are dipping their toe in. There's a lot of people who are starting their awakening. So everyone's at different levels, but it's exciting to know that you'll be able to sort of share with us your journey into this life of yours, and let people know that they're not alone in what they're feeling.
Absolutely. I think that's the most important thing though, because now, especially with social media and everything else that we've got out there, a lot of people are looking to start off in the same places that a lot of people are at already. So what I mean by that is, you might go on Instagram and see somebody's, going through their awakening, but what you don't see is that they might have been experiencing that for the last 10 years. So it can be really, really difficult to know where to start, what you're doing. But I think the most important thing to kind of take away from it is just to remember that there's no right or wrong with it, that everybody's awakening is going to look very, very, very different. And just to kind of take away that comparison as well, it's super important.
I agree totally. And that's with most things in life, isn't it? But especially with this, it's so important. Well, I want to start with actually sharing your own spiritual awakening and your own journey into utilizing your gifts, because you've said that you've always felt different. You've grown up always feeling different. So you were probably born with these gifts. Can you talk to us about Ness as a child and what that was like for you?
She was a weird one. I was always just that kind of weird kid. Not weird in the sense, like weird, different is a good word. Very quiet, very, very observant. I was one of those kids that would just kind of sit there and analyze everything that was going on around me all the time. From the get-go, like if I didn't like someone, I could just pick up on their energy straight away. So that was always kind of within me, just to be able to pick up on energy. So I never used to listen to the words people would say. I would always be reading energy, even as a kid. And I think the first event that really stood out to me spiritually, or I guess on more of a maybe medium kind of level, was when I was in year 2. And I think I've told this story before, but when I was in year 2, we had a exchange teacher come through, and she was from Canada, and I'll never forget Miss Diane. So she was from Canada. She had short curly grey hair, and she was very out there. We went to a Catholic school, but she was very out there for a teacher. And she always used to talk about angels in the room, angels everywhere. And she had guided us as a class through our first ever meditation. And that was actually my very first experience with meditation. So just to remember that, I think, is quite big in itself. And just breathing through it. She was talking us through it, breathing, imagine you're in a forest. And I could picture everything she was saying. And then she prompted us, open up your eyes, and I want you to look around the room and see if you can notice any angels in the room. And I just remember I opened my eyes and I saw my first angel. So I will never forget it. This beautiful white light radiating from the corner of the room. And I've looked, and I kind of think my face must have looked really taken aback. Wow. And all the kids were putting up she was saying, can you see any angels? And all the kids were putting up their hands saying, I see an angel here, I see one there. And then that kind of encouraged me to share as well. So I had put up my hand and I described exactly what I could see, where I could see it. And she just looked at me like she knew. She just stared at me and she was like, yes, Vanessa. Yep. And I will never forget that, just to have that kind of validation in that moment. So that was my first experience. But then from there, I think that really kind of opened me up, having that first moment of validation. From there, it was then, I was kind of seeing people all over the place, and it was on and off. It would come and go. Then going into my teenage years, where I was just like, no, this is not normal. There is, nobody else can see what I see. Nobody else can feel the way that I feel. And I just totally shut it off, shut it down. Especially going into high school, you don't want to be known as that kid, there's lots of judgment, lots of criticism, lots of hormones flying around. So it's really, really hard to, I guess, balance, well, it was back when I was in high school, to balance your spirituality with, your social life, everything else that's going on. So teenage years are a little bit tricky. They were very dark, very, very, very dark. Antidepressants, anxiety, severe panic attacks, lots of self-harm, if I'm being honest. It was, I guess, we have something in an awakening that we call the dark night of the soul. And I very much felt that. It was, even now to think about it, I can look back and go, wow, the growth has been immense. But when I really allow myself to go back and feel everything in those moments, it still really hurts. So it can be, that's what I mean when I can say it can be really, really, really anxiety inducing to go through an awakening, because you are firstly suppressing parts of yourself that you don't understand, and that's why you're suppressing it. But then there's also that fear of judgment, that fear of rejection, that fear of the unknown. So all of that coming through, or all of that being suppressed, I guess, is probably one of the most painful things that you could go through as a person, because parts of yourself are, I guess, dying. I don't know a better way to put it. So yeah, that was really tricky. And I think that it's important that people know that, I mean, I don't put myself up on a pedestal at all. I'm very, very, very open and honest with my community, always, like sharing the highs and the lows. But I think that people tend to take the highs all the time and not see or acknowledge the lows of other people. So when I say that, I mean, I think that people might look at somebody like myself and say, wow, look at what she can do. Look at, the gifts that she's got. Look at what she's able to do with spirit and everything else. I want that, which I understand, but it hasn't been that simple. It has been a heart-wrenching journey. So yeah, that's
I have a bag full of questions. So, Ness, what would have been helpful for you as a kid, as a teenager as well? What support would have been helpful for you at that time to make things easier? Because there are children now who are experiencing this. There are teenagers. I've got a teenager at the moment, and I know how hard it is for her just going into year 7 and doing her thing, the traditional way, but can only imagine what it's like with these things and feeling so different. So what would have been a good support for you back then?
Look, that's a really tricky question, because I ask myself that as well. I fully believe that I needed to go through things the way that I went through them. I absolutely, the support is so important. But at the same time, had I not gone through what I did at the extent and the level that I went through it to come out of it the other end, I can probably most certainly say that I would not be where I am right now. And I know that that sounds really cheesy, but it's absolutely true. And also, I had gone through all of this at a time when social media wasn't a big thing. So I didn't have access to social media. I didn't have, an online community to reach out to or to talk to. Now it's very different. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. And I say that because, yes, you have got social media, you can reach out to people, you've got these different platforms to support you, but also you've got these platforms, and if they're not used correctly, you're falling into that trap of comparison once again. My journey doesn't look like that. Should I be doing this the same way that person is doing it? So I think that me figuring it out on my own was helpful, was useful. Support-wise, I do feel as though had I maybe had the tools to, build my confidence, to learn how to trust myself, had I had that knowledge about journaling to express your feelings, or, there are more people that go through this. It's not just you. Had I known that, I feel like that would have been comforting in itself. So I guess support-wise, just knowing that you're not alone in this journey, just knowing that there are other people that you can reach out to and call in for support, and being able to have those really honest and open conversations. So especially for those mothers who are, do have children going through this, especially at that teenage level, just listening to what they have to say and really hearing them, validating what they're going through, that in itself is more than you could possibly even imagine. So yeah, I think
that's a great answer. And I feel like it can be hard for some parents too, if they are skeptical and they don't believe themselves. And a lot of times other family members can also experience this stuff. But I don't know, were you the first in your family to have these gifts?
Well, it hasn't been confirmed, but I wholeheartedly believe that my nonna is the same. She's never fully said like, yep, I can do this, but I just know.
Yeah.
When you just know, I just know. My nonna was the one. She'd sit in bed with me. She'd teach me how to pray, how to talk to my angels, all that kind of stuff from a young age. So I just know.
Yeah.
Full credit to her.
Beautiful. So Nonna, you've got an Italian background. So Nonna is your grandmother. Tell me about your gifts. Tell me about what you see, what you feel, how you connect to spirit.
Okay. So it varies.
Mm-hmm.
It varies all the time, depending on how much sleep I've had, depending on how connected I am, depending on, am I intentionally trying to connect or am I just doing my own thing? So I have got different clair abilities. First and foremost, I am an empath. So what that means is I feel things that people are feeling to the same extent. So when somebody says to me, I'm feeling really upset, I don't just go, oh, that's okay, you'll be fine, I understand. When I say I understand, I mean I feel exactly what they are feeling. So that was the first kind of, I guess we're going to call it ability, quotation, that I had developed within myself to really be able to connect to somebody on an emotional level. Then spirit-wise, my connection to spirit is very much through clairaudience. So what that means is I hear my messages come through. So how do I explain this? I get this question all the time. When I hear a message from spirit, it is like my own voice in my head. So it's like I might just have a thought and when you're thinking to yourself and you hear your voice in your head kind of narrating your life, that's what it is. So I hear my own voice in my head, but I just know that it's not me talking. So I might be in the kitchen cooking something and then all of a sudden it'll be like a little thought or a voice come through to say, go and do this, this, and this. Or it might be, call this person, they really need to talk to you. Whatever it might be, the way that it comes through is my voice in my head.
Yeah. And how do you learn over time to trust that? Because at the beginning, you're probably like, oh, that's just my monkey mind, or that's, yeah. And so how do you over time get to say, yeah, I trust this voice. I understand it's not me and it's an intuitive gift. It's a message from angel or spirit or guides.
There's only one way to answer that, and it's not the best way, but you just do.
Yeah.
You just do. You throw yourself in 100% and you say, if this voice has been accurate this whole time, then it's obviously there for a reason. It is telling me because it's something that I need to be following through with. And I think that the only way that you can really, really tune into that and move forward and trust yourself wholeheartedly is through trusting that voice. Actually, funny story, I've done a couple of readings where spirit has come through as my own voice in my head, and I've gone, no, like that's not right, what are you talking about? So I'll give you an example. I had this reading with this beautiful lady one day, and she was talking about her partner. There was a separation going on, and he was in Australia, she was somewhere else overseas, and she was, questioning the relationship. And the voice comes through, my spirit comes through. There's another woman. And I've gone, what? Like, there's another woman? He's cheating on her? What's going on? And I've gone, okay. I said to her, look, I need to tell you something. There's another woman. And she goes, what do you mean? But in my gut, I knew he wasn't cheating on her. So it didn't make sense to me. It did not add up. And then you go into this place of, am I making this up? Where is this coming from? And I said to her, look, my gut is telling me without a doubt, mind you, this is when I had first started doing readings for other people. So I was nervous as fuck. I was like, oh my God, she's going to think that I'm the worst reader in the world. I was honest with her. I said, that's the only way that I can get through this is with honesty. So I said to her, my gut is telling me he's not cheating on you, but this voice is saying to me, there is another woman, and I couldn't shake it. I kept hearing it over and over again. So I knew that I needed to say it. I told her, and she just sat in silence, and she was like, okay, cool. She told me that she was attracted to another woman.
Wow. Okay.
Right? And she was confused because she was like, but I'm not gay. And then as soon as she said that, it opened up the gates, and it was like, whoa, all this information just came. So I needed to say that to start the conversation. And then everything just came, the downloads came through. And I was like, just talking about this other woman.
Wow.
And it ended up being that she ended up leaving her partner, and she was in a relationship with this woman moving forward. So they said it for a reason.
Absolutely. Well, that is such a really powerful example. It's such a great example of, that trust within, like I said, the voice, and also balancing that within your body. And I suppose over time, and the more experience you get, and the more you do this on a day-to-day basis, the more comfortable you get in order to read these signals within yourself.
Absolutely. So the clairaudience, that's the predominant method that I communicate to spirit. But in saying that, I also do have those clairvoyance abilities where I see spirits, and just that clairsensitive of just knowing. So there are lots of different clair abilities, and I think that it's really important people know it's going to look different for everybody. Once again, the same thing as anything with your spiritual journey. What you would perceive, what I would perceive as a spirit message would come through different for somebody else. So that's really important too.
Have you ever felt fear around this and wanting to turn it off, or just have a break?
Yeah. Fear. I've got a story for that. I had probably my first experience, or negative experience, with spirit. I was still living with my parents back at home, and I was constantly shutting off. So this is back when I was neglecting all kind of my spirituality, my spiritual journey. And I just kept feeling this really heavy presence in my room. And it was one night, I will never forget it, lying in bed, and just this feeling of panic and anxiety just washed over me. And then out of nowhere, I'm feeling like someone's tugging on my legs. And I was going, what the hell? And then it just kept getting harder and harder and harder. And then I just screamed. My brother-in-law ran through the house because he thought somebody had broken in. And then, my parents were like, you're probably just having a bad dream. It was probably a nightmare. Don't worry. I would have been 19, 20. I ended up getting into bed with my parents as a 20-year-old with my dog. I was like, no, we're sleeping here tonight. It's good.
The comfort.
Yeah, literally. And the next morning, my legs were covered in bruises.
Really?
So yeah. And that was the scariest experience that I've ever had in my life. And funny story, once I had actually moved out, my dad had stayed a night in that room. He'd, just got a new mattress. He's like, yes, new mattress. So he stayed in that room. He called me the next day and he's like, Vanessa, I believe you.
Wow.
And I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, the same thing happened to me. Like I felt something in that room, and I was like, I told you, you see, I didn't make it up. And he got the holy water, and then he was just going through the house with the holy water.
Did you ever work out what that was or who that was?
No, looking back on it, I still don't know to this day, possibly because I avoid it. Maybe that's something that I need to go and sort out, but shadow work. Possibly because I avoid it, but I think that would have either been somebody connected to that particular space within the house, or maybe just somebody kind of going like, wake up, what's going on? Like, wake up, snap out of it. I still don't know to this day, but that was the most fearful experience that I've had with spirit. As for switching off, it gets exhausting. It gets so beyond exhausting. Like, don't get me wrong, I love what I do. I wouldn't change it for the world. And I am so beyond grateful for the opportunities that I've had over and over and over again. I will never not be grateful for it. But balancing everything and, trying to have those moments of peace amongst the chaos, it gets exhausting. It gets really tiring. And I do feel that pressure to have to kind of show up all the time. So it's tiring. It is.
You got to, I suppose, and as bad as this might sound, but find ways to numb out, like sit in front of the telly sometimes and just try and switch off just to have a little break, perhaps. Because if you're connecting in with spirit consistently, like you said, exhausting.
Oh, absolutely. It's I don't know. I think that once you have kind of not fully, I don't know if I'm not going to say fully awakened, because I still have a lot of learning and growing to do. But once you have awakened to a certain extent, it's almost like you can't switch off. Do you know what I mean? Like, you could be sitting there. I find myself now doing it. I sit there watching TV and I'm looking at all of the subliminal messages.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else does that, but I'm like,
we do.
like that. Oh my gosh. And it's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm reading a book at the moment and I was like, this guy's going through serious trauma. I'm like, what are you doing? Just read it and enjoy it.
Even listening to the radio and listening to specific words that pop up and different messages that you think be coming through. It's crazy. Now, Ness, I'm curious, and this might be a rude question, but how old are you at the moment? Or give me a ballpark.
I'm 27. I'm turning 28 on Wednesday.
Wow. Oh, happy birthday for Wednesday. Now, I find in my experience with psychics and spiritual leaders, there tends to be sort of an age group around the late 40s to 60s, 70s, where that's where women, I've noticed, come out and really utilize their gifts and share them with the world. And you seem to be one of the youngest psychics out there at the moment. And I love that, because you bring such a different sense of understanding to it, especially for people in your age bracket. Have you found that with the people that you're doing the readings with?
In a sense, yeah. I don't particularly look at it in the sense that, I feel really old, and I know that that probably sounds silly.
Yep.
And when you just know, you've been an old soul your entire life, right? And everyone always says that to me. I thought you were older. You're such a baby, and da da da. I hear it all the time. Funny story. This is actually my last reincarnation here on Earth. But anyway,
Wow.
yeah,
Tell me more about that.
Oh gosh. No, I've been here over and over again. And when we continue to reincarnate and serve our final earthly purpose, we reincarnate as an ascended master. So that's my next life. I'll be an ascended master. I won't be coming back in a physical body, which I've seen numerous times. My angels have confirmed to me. But that's like a whole different, that's like Pandora's box that we're opening there. But in regards to that, in regards to the age thing, I feel like maybe I take a different I spin readings differently. So I'm not going to sit there and read for somebody and tell them A, B, and C. I'm not going to say, you know, your love life, your marriage, your this, your that, your whatever, because I feel like what's the point of knowing things if you don't know how to move forward with that information?
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to my readings, I'm very much like, here are your options, here are your paths, the choice is yours. I think that a lot of people go into readings with misconceptions that they're going to hear their future and that is set in stone, which is definitely not the case. We as humans have got free will. We have choices that we can make on a daily basis. So anything that our future might look like has got the ability to change depending on every single choice we make. I make that perfectly clear in my readings. Should you choose to make these decisions, should you choose to go down this path, this is the outcome. Should you choose this alternative route, then this is going to be the outcome. And then it's about, you know, having that conversation with my client to decide what is it that they want for themselves in that moment. How are they going to align themselves with that end result so that they can move forward and make that best possible decision for themselves and have that desired outcome. Not like I'm not taking away from what anyone else does. It's, you know, everybody wants different things. So if you're wanting to go to somebody to hear A, B, and C, this is when this is going to happen, this is when that's going to happen, I feel like those kinds of readings get you hooked in, and it doesn't necessarily benefit you in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
As in, you know, you could have somebody sit there and lay your life out for you, but is that going to make a difference to you in the sense of your growth? So that's what I try to do with my readings. I want people to take away that they have the potential to grow and they have the potential to move forward and align with their higher selves.
That's really powerful. Do you think there's a pathway out of the options that you give them that is the pathway for their higher self? Like, is there one that potentially stands out that would be the best in talking marks, best outcome?
Always.
Yeah.
Always. As I said, it comes down to choice. People have got the decision to make. Sometimes they're not ready. Sometimes it might be, cool, I needed to hear this information, but I'm not fully ready to step into that option. So for example, you know, if somebody is showing me their dream life, they say, I want this, I want this, I want a loving and supportive marriage. I want 3 kids. I want my dream home. I want my dream job. This is everything I want. They can lay it all out for me. And they're showing me that they're currently, you know, in a relationship with somebody who is so super toxic, and they're not willing to, they're not willing to let go of that relationship. And then they're showing me that they're in a job that they're miserable in, and they're not willing to step out of their comfort zone. If I can show them a different path, an alternative route, if I can show them how to align themselves with that alternative route, I've given them the tools they need to move forward. It is then up to them to decide, this is what I want for myself. 95% of the time, that's a totally made up statistic. I couldn't tell you, but a lot of the time, I'm getting my clients coming back to me time and time again. And the feedback that I get is either everything you said was absolutely spot on and accurate, and, you know, I'm taking everything you said into consideration moving forward. I already feel better. Or I've actually had people come to me and say, you know, thank you, unfollow, move on, do what they want to do in life, come back to me a year, 2 years later and say to me, holy shitness, everything that you said to me in the reading 2 years ago, a year ago, whatever, was so spot on, and I didn't want to believe it in the moment, and I didn't want to see it in the moment. But now that I have, you know, continued down the path and made those changes without even realizing that I made those changes that you had told me, and I've listened back to the reading and I've done this and I've done that, that was everything that I needed all along.
Wow.
So the options are always there. you have got free will. You have got the choice. You've got different choices to make. It's about what you want to do to align yourself with your highest possible good.
I love, love, love that. And I love that you bring that into your readings. I think it's brilliant. I've been having a chat to one of my friends who had a reading recently, and she was telling me the outcomes of this discussion. And it's someone who goes to readings quite often. So generally hears the same thing over and over again, and then tells me the same thing over and over again. And it's just consistently the same message. And I said, okay, let's take this information now and let's figure out what you're going to do with it, so that in another year, when you have your next reading with someone new, they're not just telling you the same things again. So what can we do with this information is what is going to make the shifts. And she just stood back and like wide-eyed and was like, okay, I'm in a position here where I have to make some changes and take some accountability of what's next.
Absolutely. People fall into that trap. I think that a lot of the time I've actually knocked people back. I've had people book in with me, pay for my readings, whatever. And I've messaged them and said, I'm not reading for you. And I will tell them, just with nothing but absolute love, I'm not going to waste your time or your money because you want this one particular thing to be said. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not here to tell people what they want to hear. I will tell you what you need to hear. And a lot of the time people won't like that. But why are you booking in with a reader if you just want them to tell you, you're doing the right thing, you're this, you're that? Like, that's not how it works. I mean, some people might take advantage of that, but absolutely I will not read for people that I know will not take on what I'm saying. So I think that that's really important as well, because how do you build trust? There are so many skeptics as it is who go, oh, psychics are bullshit, mediums are bullshit, this is shit, this is like, I'm not going to add to that.
Yeah.
So if somebody's coming to me and they just want to hear A, B, and C, and I'm going to tell them the opposite, I'm not going to put either of us in that position or situation.
Yeah, so interesting. When you make those decisions not to have those readings, is that based on your intuitive gut feels? Is that something?
Oh, yeah. That's my angels. They're like, nope, not this person. And I'll be like, cool, thanks. You got my back.
Yeah. I love the way this conversation's flowing, because every time I've got a little list of talking points, as you do when you're interviewing someone. And just as I'm about to move on to that, you say the word. It's hilarious. I'm picking up on these little... I love it. So I wanted you to tell me about your angels and your spirit guides, your individual ones. I want you to explain them to me and describe them and give me all the feels.
They're hilarious. Firstly, they're hilarious. My personal angels, they are, imagine like the little cartoon with the angel and the devil on your shoulders.
Yeah.
Right. They're my angels. I've got one who's like super cheeky, super like, oh, wouldn't it be fun if we fuck shit up today? And it's like, no. And they very much come out in my personality as well. I'll have times where I'm really serious, really just like in the zone, focused, and then I'll have moments where you just cannot calm me down, cannot shut me up. So I very much tend to tune into one or the other. But they are always with me, just as all of us have got our own angel or angels who are always with us. It's just about learning how to tune into their energy, learning how to connect with them. And that can be as simple as just talking to them, even if you feel silly about it, even if you feel like, you're not talking to anybody. It can be as simple as, getting in the car and, thank you, angels, for keeping me safe on my destination, on my journey to my destination, or, waking up in the morning, thanks, angels, I'm going to have an amazing day today and I'm so excited. Really, really, really simple little things that you can do to connect with them. And that's how I practiced. Now we're just so in tune with each other, and I love that I'm talking about them as though they are real physical beings. But yeah, they are quite literally my voice of reason, I guess. So I love having them with me all the time.
So when you've got a big decision to make, how do you tune in to getting your guidance?
Oh, it's funny. Now I don't need to question anything. Now I just know.
Yeah.
But I guess probably when I was more starting out, it would be about, pulling out the cards, cleansing myself, talking to them, asking them, reflecting on it. I got really, really good at automatic writing. So I would just start writing whatever was in my head, and then I would just let the words flow on the page, and then I'd read back and go, oh, okay, the answer's in here. That might not work for some people, which is okay. Everybody has different techniques and different abilities. But yeah, starting out with the oracle cards or the tarot cards, and now it's more so, I'll be faced with a decision and they'll either show me. So like, as I said at the beginning with you, they showed me a green light, which meant, yep, it's cool. Like, you've got the green light, you've got the tick to go, or I'll just know. And I know that that's probably a frustrating answer to hear when people are like, but I need to know how to make a decision. But you just need to practice learning to trust yourself.
Yeah. And
stop looking for the answers externally, especially.
yeah, it's hard to put this type of feeling into words.
Yeah, absolutely.
External to words, but journaling is such a strong tool, and you've brought it up a few times. It's something that I sort of weave in and out of doing, and I'm doing a lot more at the moment because I've found how powerful it can be, and there's so much gold that you find out about yourself and how you feel and what's in there when you're journaling and not just overthinking everything. So yeah. It's a huge tool. Now, one of the reasons, the reason how I managed to find you and see your work was through a post on Instagram that was during a time of pretty hard struggle for me personally and most of the world, because I was going through 400 days of lockdown. I'd moved countries. The world felt so uncertain. My kids hadn't been to school for 4 terms. I didn't know what was coming. I didn't know which country or town I was going to be living in. Everything felt really uncertain, and I was looking somewhere for some answers about perhaps what was coming next in the world. And someone sent me, I can't even remember who sent it to me now, but there was a global prediction that had come from your page that was for 2022, so for the year that we're in now. And I look back on those global predictions, and so many of them have actually manifested into reality. And I won't go through them now. Everyone can go onto your Instagram page and actually go and find them. You do share lots of predictions for the collective on that page. But tell me about what happened when you shared that and after you shared that, and what the reaction was from the community.
Oh, my Lord. Okay. So I get these downloads all the time, right? I use the word predictions on the post because I feel like that would resonate with a lot more people. They would understand the word prediction over downloads. But basically, it was a download. So when I meditate, I get lots of information coming through depending on my intention for that meditation. And it was on the 10th of October from memory. We were having a really powerful energetic portal day. And I sat down and I had the intention for my angels to just show me everything and anything I needed. And what I tend to do is in my meditation, I'll sit and I'll focus and I'll breathe. And whatever I see, whatever comes through to me as a thought or an image or a visual, whatever it might be, I will either write down or I'll have voice notes on my phone. So I'll record my voice talking whatever it is that's in my head. And I've got, my Lord, if anyone went through my notes on my phone, they would have no idea what was going on. I've got hundreds and hundreds of notes, just downloads after downloads. So it was on, when was it? I think it was New Year's Eve. It might have been. where or maybe New Year's Day, whenever it was, the news broke that Betty White died. And I was like, oh my God, I knew that was going to happen. How did I know that was going to happen? And the thought in my head, so my angels, obviously, as I said, the thought in my head that doesn't belong to me is my angel's way of communicating with me. The thought in my head, check your notes. And I've gone, okay, I'll check my notes. Like, what am I looking for? And then I just saw the number 10. So I went, okay, 10. So 10, what's 10? October. Gone to October. And then I see my notes on the 10th of the 10th. Pages and pages and pages and pages. I didn't even share all of them because some of them were so ridiculously out there that I for sure would have had my account deleted. But
wow.
Pages and pages. And then I see Betty White and I was like, oh, there it is. Betty White dies right before she turns 100. And I went, oh my God, like I downloaded this. I knew that this was going to happen and I hadn't remembered. So I get all this information all the time. It comes, and then once I've written it down, it leaves my mind. Otherwise, I'd just be going crazy. So it wasn't in my mind anymore, but I'd read these pages. And as I'm reading them, I just heard, they're ready. And I was like, what do you mean they're ready? And I just kept hearing it, they're ready. I was like, do I need to share this? Like, is this something that I have to do? And then once again, they're ready. So that was obviously my confirmation. So I put together the post, I screenshotted it all, and I went, I was hesitating. I was doubting myself. I was going, and this was ego kicking in, going, what if people are going to think that I'm making this up? What if people are going to think that I'm, a loony? What if people are going to think this? That's my ego coming from a place of fear, coming from a place of anxiety around what are people going to think of me? I'm going to be judged for this. Intuition kicks in, angels kick in saying, no, you need to share this. So I trusted it. I put it in a post. I hit send. I posted it. It was gone. It was out there. And then come the alerts, like ding, ding, ding. I'm going, oh shit, like what did I do? What did I just do? I went, in the space of a week, I went from 14,000 to 21,000 followers. And when I tell you that the anxiety within me was peaking, like I'm somebody, believe it or not, I'm somebody who hates being in the spotlight. I do not like attention whatsoever. So to all of a sudden have all these people messaging me, all of these messages coming through, I'm just sitting there going, oh my God, like, oh, like I just wanted to wrap myself up and go and hide in a dark corner. But then I kept questioning it, going, why did I need to post this? I don't like the attention. I don't like people perceiving me a certain way. So what is it that I needed? Like, what was the outcome of me posting this? And then it came to me in another download later on that post was to support a mass awakening that needed to happen for the collective to move forward. So, even if that post itself had people going, oh my God, like A, B, and C has actually happened on her list, tick, tick, tick. The timestamps show she did actually write it here, that was enough to then have people question and go, maybe this is legit. Maybe the stuff that this person is saying is actually happening. And because that was just enough for them to question, that's all it takes to kind of spark an awakening for people.
Yeah.
And that's what needed to happen in that moment. So I guess there's always a bigger purpose, isn't there?
Oh, it was incredibly powerful. And I've actually gone back and read it. I do it probably once a month. I just go back and I'm like, oh, what's happened now? Like it's so really accurate. And you can see things starting to unfold within the world with what you've written. What is going on with the collective at the moment? What feeling are you getting from the energy from the collective?
Oh, absolute and utter chaos. Chaos. So the energy that's coming through at the moment is just so overwhelming. And it's a combination of, there are people really, 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 really trying to avoid that awakening process. They don't want to come to terms with what reality actually looks like. And then there are also, I'm starting to notice people that are on the other extreme end of full pelt spirituality, forgetting that they are humans having a human experience, which also isn't great.
Yeah.
So I think that we need to be more in balance. We need to be more kind of yin yang flow. It's just we've got this huge divide at the moment, and all of these little, even just the astrological events that are happening at the moment. So right now we're in Mercury retrograde, Pluto retrograde, and solar eclipse shadow phase. And everybody's noticing it. Everybody's in tune with the energy that's going on. But we need to have these moments in order to kind of go, okay, like, what do I need to do moving forward to support my growth? Everybody focusing on their own personal and spiritual growth is contributing to the growth of the collective. So I think that it comes down to just kind of tuning out of everything else and not so much being kind of not obsessed, but not being so wrapped up with everything else that's going on in the world, focusing on yourself, focusing on, releasing judgment, releasing fear, releasing your own anxieties, and working through all of that in order to support yourself, then supporting the collective as a result. It's just been really overwhelming lately, and I'm definitely feeling that coming through.
Yeah, wow. It's I interviewed a psychic. I've said this a few times on this podcast. I interviewed Debbie Malone at the end of 2019, and I asked her that similar question. This is before COVID had hit and before all of this chaos had hit. And I asked her about the collective and what energy she felt around what was coming, because I personally felt a big shift, and it had been spoken about quite a few times in a lot of other interviews that I'd done about some big shift that everyone was feeling but had no idea what it was. And Debbie Malone mentioned a huge darkness that was coming. And I actually cut it out of the episode. I've mentioned this a few times. I cut it out of the episode because it was so dark, and it was right at the end. And I thought, I sort of don't want to leave it at that. It's just so heavy. And I'm actually scared of what she's just said, thinking that the world was going to end and there was going to be a mass shift. And in fact, it did happen, of course. And she was definitely onto something. She had no idea to what extreme, but she knew that there was this darkness that was coming, and she was spot on. So, I keep my eyes open, but I think you're right in the fact that don't fixate on these things, and make sure you're doing your own healing work, looking after yourself and ticking all the boxes for yourself to make sure you are in balance mentally, physically, spiritually and emotionally.
Absolutely. It is so, so, so important. I keep getting, what's going on in Russia? What's going on with this? What's going on with Johnny Depp? What's going on with Will Smith? My instant thing is just, everything is a distraction.
Yeah.
Everything is a distraction. Focus on you. That's all that needs to be said and remembered. And I think that we just get so caught up in everything that's around us that we forget that, the world is a stage, right?
Do you watch the news, Ness?
Nope.
Mm-hmm.
No. When I'm, if I'm at someone's house, the news on the TV, I watch it and I just kind of laugh, and I'm like, I feel like then it's now getting so ridiculous. They're just grasping at, anything that they can to hold on to those last little bits of control. So it's a hard no for me.
If you do watch the news through a lens of like a different lens, a different perspective of just thinking of not taking everything as it's being said as full truth, and going, okay, let me tune into how I feel that is true, you see things so differently, don't you? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a whole other podcast as well that we can dig into. I feel like there's about 12 podcast series that we could dig into with you and talk about all of the things that you're doing, your events, how you're helping people tune into their own awakening, how you cleanse and protect. Like it's endless stuff that people can actually find on your platform, on your Instagram page and on your website. And I've had so much fun talking to you, getting to know you, learning about you as a person and how your gifts are helping heal others and guide others. It's so special.
Oh, thank you. There's one more thing that I want to say, and it is that everything that I do, everything that I am capable of doing, my gifts, my abilities, whatever you want to call it, every single person has got the potential to do the same thing. It is not something that you're born, it is not something you're born with, it is something that you can develop. Everybody's already got it within them, and it's about whether or not you choose to put in the work and tune into it. So just for anybody, I guess, who's been listening to this going, it would be so cool to do that, I'd love to do that, everybody is capable of doing it. It's about putting in the work. It's about healing all parts of yourself and learning how to trust yourself and moving forward from there. That will give you all of the tools that you need to be able to connect more spiritually.
And with that comes freedom.
Oh, like you wouldn't believe.
Love that. I almost want to end it there, but I do ask everyone this question at the end of my podcast episodes and conversations on the show. What is something that you have heard in your life? Because the whole reason I share this podcast is because I heard something that made me make positive changes. It was just an aha moment for me. So what's something in your life that you have heard that you could not unhear and that sparked positive changes or a shift within the way that you presented to the world? And right now I'm looking at you and there's this huge beam of light just coming straight down from your head down to your shoulder.
And that's because exactly what I'm going to say is the right thing to say. And that is, you create your own reality. That's it. You create your own reality. Your thoughts, your mind, your action, every choice that you decide to make for yourself creates your reality. So whatever you choose to believe is truth.
Wow. Yeah, I love that. And also there is a love heart shaped light. Can you see that on your roof right there?
Yeah.
You're sitting in your car now because you have your little girl who's having a nap inside, and you've come to talk to me in the peace and quiet of your car, and there's a speck of light that is creating a love heart, a perfect love heart shape on the top of your roof right there, which is beautiful.
I love it.
Too. Well, if anyone wants to connect with Ness, I'll put all of her details in the show notes. Her Instagram page is Readings by Ness, and it provides a wealth of information and guidance. I'm so tempted to have a reading. I'm sure all of you are as well. I haven't had a reading in ages, but I am definitely tempted to chat to you further on a more personal level as well. So maybe we can chat about that at some stage. But thank you again for your time, your energy, your good vibes, really. And it's funny, when I talk to you, I feel like, and I don't know if you're like this with everyone, that you just talk to people like you've known them your whole life, because you probably
always.
Even our interaction on our DMs on Instagram, it's almost like, am I talking to my best friend? This is someone that I actually met yet. This is so great. So thanks for being like that.
That's literally just me. What you see is what you get. That's it.
I love it. I love it so much. I wish more people were like that. Thank you so much, Ness, for your time today. I can't wait to share this conversation with the world. Thanks for listening to the show. What did you think? And what did you feel? Let us know by leaving me a message on the Things You Can't Unhear Instagram community page. And if you can, give us some ratings love on your favourite listening platform.